After all, the supreme leader has to appear to maintain supremacy.
Russia has warned that the situation could spiral out of control.
In fact, Bibi is waiting for such an opportunity.
Wow. Let us all thank Russia for being so concerned about de-escalation.
So, O Supreme Leader of Iran, don't give Bibi that opportunity.
Iran became an Islamic republic. After this, everything changed in Iran.
Since the war began, Israel has shown no mercy.
Just like the whole world, they might also be waiting for the great Uncle Sam's show.
China brokered a peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Namaste and welcome to Sshom. In this video, we'll discuss the latest updates on Iran versus Israel clash. We'll cover Israel's latest attack, the background and the events that led up to it. We'll examine how Israel's response was restrained, as it opted for a deliberately limited attack. Then we'll discuss the perspectives of both Iran and Israel on these attacks, looking at what each side has to say. We'll also look at the international response to these attacks, covering the viewpoints of various nations and the international community. Finally, we'll conclude the session by discussing what might be next for the Middle East. So let us start the session. You must be aware that Israel has finally attacked Iran, taking revenge for Iran's earlier strikes. If you remember, on October 1, Iran launched around 200 ballistic missiles at Israel. Following this, Israel vowed to retaliate. Everyone was wondering when Israel would respond. It was clear an attack would come. The only question was when. Finally, after 25 days, Israel took its revenge, carrying out precise, targeted airstrikes in Iran. The attack unfolded in 3 waves, with over 100 Israeli fighter jets hitting Iranian military sites. Some even breached Iranian airspace, which was quite embarrassing for Iran. Through this action, Israel sent a strong message, showcasing its capabilities to Iran.
Israel has long been a rival of Iran. As we know, Israel was formed in 1948, but at that time, Iran's relations with Israel were not strained. In fact, Iran was one of the first countries in the region to recognize Israel, doing so in 1948. The anti-Israel stance that you see Iran taking today was not present back then. Iran-Israel relations became strained in 1979 after the Iranian Revolution. Before the revolution, Iran was a monarchy under the rule of Shah Mohammad Raza Pahlavi, a pro-United States leader. He was overthrown, and after the 1979 revolution, Iran became an Islamic republic, with Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini becoming the supreme leader of Iran. After this, everything changed in Iran. Iran declared Israel an enemy and aligned with the Palestinian cause. Essentially, Iran under Ayatollah Khomeini became anti-Israel, which continues to this day. Israel views Iran as a direct threat, as Iran has claimed that it wants to destroy Israel and does not acknowledge Israel's right to exist. This is why Israel aims to destroy Iran's nuclear program. After 1979, diplomatic ties between Iran and Israel ended.
Iran is aware of how significant a threat Israel poses. Therefore, Iran provides support to various groups that oppose Israel and resist the Israeli occupation of Palestine, groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. These are Iran's proxies in West Asia, to whom Iran provides logistical and financial support to combat Israel. If you recall, on October 7, 2023, Iran's proxy Hamas carried out a massive attack on Israel. This attack triggered the Middle Eastern conflict you are witnessing today. Since the war began, Israel has shown no mercy. Gaza has been devastated, Lebanon is under intense pressure from Israel, and even Syria has not been spared. On April 1, Israel struck Iranian diplomatic sites in Syrian capital Damascus, eliminating several top commanders of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. Key Hamas leaders Ismail Haniyeh and Yahya Sinwar have also been neutralized, and Israel has dealt a severe blow to Hezbollah as well. Basically, Israel is targeting anyone linked with Iran. Hezbollah leaders Hassan Nasrallah and Hashim Saifuddin have been eliminated, effectively breaking the top leadership of Hamas and Hezbollah, which is a significant blow to Iran. In response to the of Haniyeh and Nasrallah, Iran launched around 200 ballistic missiles at Israel on October 1, 2024. And 25 days later, Israel retaliated with direct military strikes on Iran. A huge development, as no foreign air force had struck Iran since the Iran-Iraq War of the 1980s.
Israel's actions now have heightened fears that tensions may escalate further, with risks of the conflict spreading, more nations becoming involved, and the potential for large-scale violence increasing. Other than defense companies and people linked to defense companies, nobody would want that to happen. By the way, which nation came to your mind when I said that? Anyway, there was significant pressure from the United States on Israel to refrain from attacking Iran's nuclear sites. This is why we observed a restrained response from Israel. Israel did send a message to Iran that it can launch an attack whenever it chooses, but it deliberately carried out a limited strike. Earlier too, Israel had exposed Iran's vulnerability by carrying out a massive cyber attack. Israel avoided targeting Iran's critical oil infrastructure or sensitive nuclear facilities. Instead, it executed precise, targeted strikes, made sure to avoid civilian areas, and minimized civilian casualties. Under US pressure, Israel focused solely on military targets. Consequently, the Israeli response was not as deadly as many had earlier feared. Israel struck sites in Tehran, Khuzestan, and Elam provinces, hitting Iran's missile manufacturing and storage facilities, including Parshin, a large military complex near Tehran. Around 20 military targets were hit, all of strategic importance.
However, Israel did not target Iran's critical oil infrastructure or nuclear sites. How did Israel justify its attacks on Iran? By stating it is facing relentless attacks on 7 fronts since October 7, 2023, from Iran and its regional proxies. Politicians are good at justifying things. Anyway, Israel has also faced direct attacks from Iranian territory twice. With its sovereignty under threat, Israel says it has the right to respond. After this restrained response, the Israeli Defense Forces announced that they had completed their attack on Iranian military sites. This was seen as a signal that Israel does not want to escalate the conflict further. At least for now. Can't say what happens after the US elections. Further, Iran's reaction has also been cautious. It stated that the impact of the Israeli attack was very limited, and that Israel is trying to exaggerate the effects of its airstrikes. Thus, Iran has downplayed the impact of the Israeli strikes. However, Iranian leadership cannot afford to be seen as bowing down to Israel or American pressure. After all, the supreme leader has to appear to maintain supremacy.
Since a few Iranian soldiers also lost their lives in the Israeli attack, which matters for Iran, the Iranian regime has asserted its right to respond. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has said that Iran does not want war with Israel, but that the nation will respond appropriately to Israeli attacks. Iran reserves the right to respond to Israeli aggression. The supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, also did not pledge immediate retaliation for the Israeli airstrikes. An urgent United Nations Security Council meeting was also held to discuss Israel's attack on Iran. I wish that not just meetings, but the solutions to global problems were that urgent too. So, it appears that both Israel and Iran are recognizing the risks of uncontrolled escalation and are now holding back to avoid the situation spiraling into a highly destructive conflict. Or, just like the whole world, they might also be waiting for the great Uncle Sam show. Time will tell. Now, let us look at the international response to these attacks. The United States has described Israel's attack as an act of self-defense and urged Iran not to retaliate with a tit-for-tat strategy, because the US says that it does not want a full-scale war in the Middle East. America is also being targeted due to its support for Israel. US bases in Syria and Iraq are being attacked by Iranian proxies. American troops are also being targeted. This is why the US is urging both Israel and Iran to de-escalate the situation.
Of course, the stance of the US allies will be the same. So the UK, Canada, and Germany too are urging to avoid aggravating the tensions. France is also urging to cease escalation, as this is the only way to create peace in the Middle East. Interestingly, Saudi Arabia has condemned the Israeli airstrikes, accusing Israel of violating international laws and norms. In 2023, China brokered a peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran, two traditional rivals. And since then, relations between Iran and Saudi Arabia have improved. Moreover, Saudi Arabia fears that if the conflict escalates, Iran might target its oil infrastructure. Therefore, Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states like Qatar, Bahrain, and the UAE are seeking to prevent regional spillover from the conflict. And to avoid angering Iran, they have condemned Israeli airstrikes. Qatar is close to Iranian proxies, so it has called the Israeli airstrikes a blatant violation of Iran's sovereignty and has also called for an end to the suffering of people in Gaza and Lebanon. Bahrain has condemned the military action against Iran and urged an immediate ceasefire. Egypt has taken a balanced stance. If you remember, Egypt has been a mediator in past ceasefire negotiations between Hamas and Israel. It has called for avoiding actions that threaten regional stability and advocated diplomacy to de-escalate tensions.
Iran's neighbor, Iraq, has condemned Israeli actions, accusing Israel of aggression and fueling regional conflict. Iraq has also accused Israel of violating its airspace during the attack on Iran and has stated that it does not want its airspace or land used for attacks on other sovereign nations. Iraq temporarily closed its airspace following the Israeli attack on Iran. Syria, an ally of Iran, expressed solidarity, stating that Iran has the right to defend itself. Syria was also struck by Israeli forces. Jordan and Turkey have condemned Israel as well. Russia has warned that the situation could spiral out of control. Wow. Let us all thank Russia for being so concerned about de-escalation. Moving on, India has maintained its stance, urging both sides to exercise restraint and return to the path of dialogue and diplomacy. India has invested in its relationship with both Iran and Israel, and the West Asia region is significant for India as it supplies around 80% of its oil. Thus, an escalation would pose risks to the Indian community in the region and to India's energy security. Consequently, India too does not want tensions to escalate.
So what's next for the region? See, everything now depends on how Iran responds to the Israeli attack. The Israeli attack caused minimal actual damage. So it would be wise for Iran to exercise restraint and avoid further escalation, and also to keep a check on the activities of its proxies. For instance, we are seeing that the Iranian proxy Hezbollah has warned Israeli residents in northern Israel to evacuate immediately, stating that it will target several towns as Israeli troops are stationed there. Hezbollah has also issued a similar warning to communities living in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. Iran and its proxies need to understand that, for now, American pressure has moderated Israel's response. But Israel could escalate the situation in no time if provoked by Iran or its proxies. In fact, Bibi is waiting for such an opportunity so that he can tell America that he now has to continue his quote-unquote cleaning mission because of the enemy's aggression. So, O Supreme Leader of Iran, don't give Bibi that opportunity. Israel initially threatened aggressive retaliation but ultimately responded with restraint, serving as a warning to Iran not to escalate further. Israel is capable of much more than this, and if provoked, it may go beyond targeting Iranian proxies in Gaza and Lebanon and strike at the Iranian regime itself. It would be best if both Iran and Israel prioritize ceasefire agreements in Gaza and Lebanon over tit-for-tat retaliations. This is the path to ending violence in these areas. Diplomacy can prevent a broader war in the Middle East, and both nations need to break free from this cycle of confrontation. The international community is urging restraint, so let us wait and see if this will curb Israeli military ambitions in Gaza and Lebanon.